Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of our weekly Mastermind series. This is going to be today's topic is should I start a team? Or how do I start a team? Or when to start a team? There's a lot that goes into teams, and a lot of also just a lot of conversation out there about what is a team there's way more questions than there is answers when it comes to forming a team, and it's because there's a lot to put together when you actually look at forming a team, and all the questions that kind of goes along with, do I want to form a team? See, the challenge with teams, I'm just going to be like today's little session is going to be a little bit of keeping it real. I'm not going to tell you things that you want to hear in some cases. A lot of people, when they talk about teams, they think I'm going to be real sugarcoating about the whole thing. Like, yeah, everyone needs to go start a team. Everybody doesn't need to start a team. Some folks need to be really amazing solopreneurs, kind of thing, and that's okay. Uh, the first challenge here is that most agents don't necessarily fail at building teams. They fail at building businesses. A team is a business structure. And if you aren't operating your business right now like a business, then there's no point trying to throw gasoline on a dumpster fire. And I'm not trying to be mean about that, but it's really, really true. A team structure is where you are operating a much more higher functioning business. Um, Now, there's a lot of folks that operate their real estate business like a business. And if that's you, then you might be a good potential team lead. You might be a good person to decide, yes, I want to do a team. But if you're not operating already like a business, then a team is going to be something that causes more angst, more problems, more challenges for you down the road. Now, I'm a big fan of teams. I really am. One thing that we see is that teams tend to perform at a higher level. The transaction volume from teams is better. I understand the positive principles of leveraging. We're leveraging everybody's work to accomplish more. A lot of times we have more on our plate than we can do, and so having somebody else there can really kind of assist us in making all that happen. Um, but the problem starts with folks don't understand what a team is. See, with a team, it's not that you have leverage, it's now that you have responsibility. There's a lot of responsibility that comes on. When you start a team, now you've got people looking at you like, well, where's the business coming from? How am I going to feed my family? They start looking at you for that. A team is not freedom. Matter of fact, it's the exact opposite. A team is all structure. You're going to have to get structured. You have to be very, very structured, very, very routine on here. And it's not just income; it becomes margin management because now you're managing margins across multiple different data points. One problem that we see with teams is that unfortunately, most agents build a team too early. They're not ready for a team. They try and put a team together, and then they go through a lot of learning curves and pressures and challenges. Another big issue is they don't have systems in place before. And if you don't have your systems in place before you start a team, and then you try and build a team, all you really done is create a lot of chaos. And you don't go profitable, you go to burnout because then you just end up working four times as much, and now you're getting half as on the commissions. So most agents don't need to build a team until they put their systems in place. If you will focus on your systems, then adding a team element at that point makes a lot of sense. But probably one of the easiest things to look at here is if your business is not too much for you to handle, then don't even consider having a team. I know I can't tell you how many times I've seen where an underproducing agent thinks, you know what? If I had a team, we would all start doing a lot more. If I had someone to make the phone calls, if I had someone to do that kind of stuff. That's not what happens. When you don't have enough business, you end up with two people that don't have enough business once you start a team, right? A team cannot jumpstart underproducing agent. You just get multiple underproducing agents. So the first question you have to ask yourself about starting a team is, do I have more business I can handle? If you have more business than you can handle right now and you've got your systems in place, then you're going to be a really good opportunity for setting up a team. Now, why do most teams fail? Most teams fail because they have not set up clear roles. They haven't set up their lead generation systems. They've got the wrong, sometimes we bring in people that we like that maybe aren't the right people to put in our teams. A lot of times we don't put in accountability because we're so used to being independent contractors and not necessarily into managing people. And then the last one is that our teams, a lot of times, one of the reasons why they fail is they just don't have enough business. So you do want to go through and look at what are the different roles that you're going to need for your team, um, and how that team structure is going to be. There is multiple team structures. That's one thing I hear a lot about is, well, think about forming a team. And my initial question is, what kind of team? They're like, a team. That it doesn't work that way. Now, one thing, and I'm going to break down all the different structures for you here in just a few minutes. Before we get into the actual structures on every team, one thing that is consistent that you're going to need. I mean, most of your teams have five pillars that they need to operate under. The first pillar is going to be leadership, standards, goal setting. We do find that a lot of high producing agents all have very high standards for how they treat buyers, how they treat sellers, the systems that they use, the process, that kind of stuff. The second pillar needs to be marketing and lead generation. Because with a team now, you have like in most teams, the team lead is the haymaker. They're the ones who's generating everything. So you get to decide what is the marketing and lead generation that my team is going to utilize. Your third pillar is going to be tech, your database, the systems that you use. When you start your team, you have to decide what are the systems that I'm going to use. The fourth pillar is going to be accountability and or coaching, depending on the type of team. One element that a lot of teams miss, especially early on, is that accountability side of things. And then it may be coaching, it may be training that kind of goes along there. And then the last pillar of your team is going to be your back office, transactional, financial management, the nuts and bolts of running that. I want to kind of share with you, um, let's see here. I'm going to share because what I want to do is I want to jump into the different types of teams. So hopefully you guys are seeing uh, my slide here kind of thing. Um, and so these are the most common team structures. There isn't one team structure. Then these are there's more than what I have listed here. So I mean, we have a lot of folks that start off in mentee mentor teams. Then we have the team leader type teams where it's all run underneath an entity or a person. We have lead gen teams, we have family teams, we have SEAL teams, and then we have the friend teams. And I'm going to kind of break these down for you real quick as we kind of go through. So I just kind of want to run through you because as you're going through, you have to decide what kind of team. There isn't just this one, oh, everybody's this kind of thing on team. Every team is different on the goals, the support that you're going to get, the cost, the expense that you're going to be in there, that kind of stuff. So the one place where I see a lot of teams kind of begin, and most of the time is what I see team leaders begin, is in the mentor-mentee team structure. There's a lot of folks that like doing the mentor-mentee team side of things, largely because you get this. You can kind of grow into it. We already have a lot of mentorship going on for a lot of agents that are knowledgeable. A lot of times they'll be mentors, and so going into that and starting that is something that can really help out. I see some stuff coming in chat. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Anna, we will get into how we pick team members in just a minute, but right now I just want to go through, the different types of teams. So I will jump into that in a minute. But starting off with that mentor mentee team, the great thing about that one is it's pretty low cost on here. Um, a lot of times it's a great place with like newer agents in here. They tend to be the agents that come into the mentee mentor teams tend to be shorter term. They don't tend to stay there long term out there. Most of the time it's going to be while they learn and grow, that kind of stuff. Um, Most of the time, most of your mentee teams does not do lead gen with them. They do a much more. I'm going to teach you to fish than give you fish in most of your mentor type teams. So most of the time as a mentor team, you're going to teach outbound prospecting. You're going to teach sphere of influence. You're going to teach how to do open houses, that kind of stuff. But then you tend to take a little bit smaller split. But you're also going to be offering a lot less on there as well. So most of the time we kind of it's a great place to learn as a team lead. We have a lot of folks who are already in there. Most of the time your team lead, I mean your mentorship teams are not going to have transaction coordinators. It may have a team lead that looks over their stuff, but like it is much more of a growing place. It's a place where we see splits run, in the 30% range. 20 to 30% is pretty common for these type of teams, if that's where you want to start. The next team model is going to be what's called the team lead model. And the team lead model centers all around actively promoting and working under and through the team leader's brand. Now, that brand could be a person's name, it could be a team name, but everything focuses around that team. Um, in most team lead models, the team leader is the rainmaker. They're the ones that keeps the doors open, and they, on one hand, they get to make all the choices. On the other, they have to make all the choices. They have to set up all the systems. As team leader in a team lead model, you provide all the structure, the resources to your team members. You promote the team's brand, and you require that they promote the team's brand, not themselves. They're working under the team brand and they're going to promote the team brand. Now, you as that team brand, you get to decide what are the types of leads that we're going to be going after. How are we going to be generating business? What is going to work look like? Those kind of things. The team lead is generally the listing agent for most of these team lead systems. Most of your team lead teams, the principal is the person who does in most cases, especially starting off, all listings. Um, so normally one thing that you definitely need with that type of model is you're normally going to need some sort of a business manager slash transaction coordinator slash office admin kind of stuff. That's kind of one of those things that you need that back office help. But you have to be ready to go in and set lead generation goals, team member expectations, standards, how are you going to work referrals, all that kind of stuff. What the lead flow looks like, what's the database that you're going to be using, what is the standards, how often do they have to call a lead, when do they go in, are you going to require hours of operation, in most of the time, even if you're a team member, the team lead will require that at least half of their business comes from that individual agent's own sphere of business, and the other half may come from the lead generation activities that we as a team are going to do. We tend to have really high retention rates on this kind of team because there's a lot of people that get into our business and they don't know what to do. They spend the first few years floundering around and they need someone to give them some direction, some purpose, and a lot of times some accountability. The one nice thing that this team structure has is accountability. So on one hand, yes, most of your team leads teams are going to make you have to come in these kind of type of hours. When you come in, you're going to do this. You have to check in on a regular basis. The splits also tend to be 50-50, sometimes 60-40, but 50-50 is a very common split lead in here. And if you're not a team member, you might think, why would I give away half my compensation? Well, all you have to do when you join my team is you show up and then you work these leads, you do these businesses, you follow these routines, and then we get closings. And so when you have a system like that, people will come and jump into you. As far as the costs go, you have to decide what is the cost benefit analysis for you and your team, and we'll jump into that a little bit more. But you do get there is some flexibility on what do they pay for, what are you going to pay for? It depends on splits, those kind of things. But if you have a strong individual brand, if you have really high standards and you enjoy managing people, this can be a very positive and great team structure for you, but you are going to be focused around the business much more so. The biggest challenge when you run a team lead type of team is that you feel that you jump out of production. And that's because you are to a certain extent. Now you spend a lot more time teaching, training, supporting than you do actually out generating the business the same exact way. Um, the third team structure I want to kind of go over is the lead gen team model. And so the lead gen team, that is a lot of times it's separated into like um, inside sales and outside sales. Inside sales is going to deal with all your inbound leads, follow up, pre-quals, those kind of things. Outside sales they're going to be the ones handling showings, negotiations, contracts, that kind of stuff. This is a high transaction volume team. It is also the most expensive team to operate because a lead gen team is someone that is a team that is in most cases buying or in at one level or another buying leads, right? It could be Facebook leads, Google leads, pay per click, Zillow. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can do that, but this is an operations driven, uh, where it's all focused around we generate a lot of leads, and then the team is highly focused on a high percentage of those leads being able to go all the way through closing. Um, Advertising, marketing is a very big piece. It will generally be the largest expense when operating this kind of team. I know several teams like this, and they will spend, $1,000 to $20,000 a month on advertising and marketing. And so that can get really, really expensive. I know several of the lead gen teams where everybody comes in, the team lead automatically buys them two zip codes in Zillow and then does this on pay per click and does this over here. And so immediately they may be spending $3,000-$4,000 per agent per month on generating business for that team. If you're going to operate this type of team, you have to be very, very selective in the people that you bring in. And everyone who comes in has to perform or you cut them loose. Um, so when you're looking at this, it could be Zillow, Google, Realtor.com, that kind of stuff. You're going to have a very, very well done CRM/database because follow up becomes crucial when you're running that many leads. You have to make sure every lead is followed up on and that all those are put into a pipeline. And then you continue to reach out and engage. Like I said, the lead generation is going to be your biggest expense that you have to go through there. Your team members you tend to break them up into different roles. You have the folks that work the phones, and they may be getting 20 to 30%. You have the folks who may go on the showing, they may only be getting 20 to 30%. Some folks may end up being compensated flat fee. I know several teams where the showing agent makes $1,000 when a house sells if they're the showing agent. That's just the way it is. Um, but this is all about driving high sales. In most of these, the hours are going to be like for the team members, you're going to require a lot of people to come in. There has to be very thorough processes and systems. You are going to have a business admin type of person in there as well as a transaction coordinator. This team also is the one that's going to require the largest amount of staff or support staff in here. So if you're going to start this team, you're going to need some significant capital on the front end. You're going to be paying for leads right up front. It's going to cost you a lot of money. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but this is a completely different business scenario than what we're talking about with team lead or what we're talking about with mentorship. Now, on top of that, we also have some different hybrid teams. The first one is the family team. And we have several family teams, husband and wife, parents and kids, that kind of stuff. We personally have three generations in in the brokerage right now of a family. We have the grandparents, we have the parents, and then we have the kids. So it can be really, really great. Um, the splits in a family team can be anything because they're as individual as the families are. You tend to see those five pillars that we were talking about earlier. Those tend to get split up amongst the family members. Family teams can be challenging. One of the biggest problems with family teams is accountability, especially like husband and wife teams. Ming and I, we were a husband and wife team for a long time. And what happens in the boardroom and what happens in the bedroom, that changes things. It's a tough thing to really kind of carry through. Accountability is really tough in family teams because a lot of times it's like, who's the boss? Well, the challenge is you need to have someone has to be a team lead, even in a family team. Someone has to take lead decision roles, kind of thing. You can still discuss it, that kind of stuff, but what you find is that family teams can be very, very effective so long as everyone has their own roles and responsibility. Everyone's doing it. There's a clear, you come more clear on the accountability side. Figuring out who's the boss, that one's always a tough one for family teams in here. One smart family teams still hold meetings, still go over all their weekly numbers, their key performance indicators. They set goals. Um, in a lot of family teams, it's like the first rule of family team, there are no rules. Those are the family teams that flounder. Family teams that have structure and systems and again, if you are really lackadaisical about your business, a family team, you can function. You won't see a family team really take off. The family teams that really take off, they're the ones that put in standards and rules, and they operate their family team the same way you would operate a business. When that happens, family teams can be incredibly um, profitable on that side of things. Um, the next team is going to be like, we call them the SEAL teams. And so these tend to be teams that lend themselves to a particular segment or business or lead source, right? And so we have commercial teams, REO teams, short sale teams, new construction teams, HUD teams, first time buyer teams, any niche, and there's riches and niches. But if there's a particular niche that you are really, really strong on, and you can build a team just around that, and then that becomes the basis for all your business. So this is, on one hand, this can be a fantastic source of business. It can also be your Achilles heel because there's always market shifts. And so if you set up a team, and let's just say that you set up a short sale team, for example. Well, what happens when there's no short sales? Well, all of a sudden your team doesn't function well, right? We used to have an REO team back in 2009, 2010, and then eventually there weren't any REOs anymore. So like those kind of things, they tend to last as long as that lead source really is popping and popping. So, but the SEAL teams are really great because the benefit of having these type of teams is it becomes very structured around whatever that particular segment of business or lead source is. And when you work that one segment, especially as a group, you get really, really competent at it. You start building a name. It starts to becoming part of who you are. Folks send you other business. You just became, and the more you do that type of lead, the more of the business that you do, the more people come to you for that type of business. Um, you still have to make sure that you account for the five pillars that you had. The splits can really be anything. Um, but most of the time, I mean, we see it. Sometimes they're like lead gen splits, depending on the lead sources, and sometimes it's much more team lead type of splits. Again, everybody needs their own roles and responsibilities, who's doing what through there. But it can be, we see where a lot of folks like to start this type of team because it's much easier to kind of focus around one particular business segment. Now, the last team I want to talk about here is our Friends team. Um, Friends team has the highest failure rate in real estate. A lot of times it's going to be very similar to the family team model, but without the same level of commitment to each other. A husband and wife are probably going to work through it. Two friends, once you start getting into it, if you don't have the right business structure, it will tear friends apart. A lot of times friends who are like enjoy being with each other, enjoy working together. I think we could do more together. But if you don't set the structure up right, I've seen so many friendships broken up and destroyed over teams. It really is kind of challenging over there. So you got to be kind of careful on here. Now, with a friends team, the first big challenge is somebody's the boss, and that normally starts with the initial rub starts there in a lot of friends teams, where one person has to be the person that is the final say that makes the call on there. Um, that kind of conversation is sometimes tricky. Uh, Most of the time what we see are we see partnership splits as far as this type of team goes. It can be team lead, it can be mentorship, but mostly what we see is some sort of partnership splits. Now the splits can vary widely. Sometimes we see where everything is 50-50. We find that team that if you jump into a partnership team and you're like, we're just going to split everything 50-50, those tend to be the least successful. What we see happen when that happens is one person starts doing a lot of business on the team, and then the other one slacks off. And then they're still getting half of all the compensation. And now you start getting feelings hurt. Now you start getting all up in your emotions kind of thing. So 50-50 splits work great when you're each pulling your weight. But if you're not each pulling your weight, 50-50 splits feel nasty, feel sore, that kind of stuff. Um, as far as overall organization and structure, this team is the loosest on here. Normally, the five pillars are split between the friends, but accountability is really, really tough in this team because most of the time it's like, I'll help you, you'll help me. And they tend to get that. But everybody needs to have their own roles and responsibilities. You need to have structured meetings. You need to have goals. And there needs to be consequences for things. Uh, we see where folks will try and start this kind of team, and maybe they shouldn't start this team at all. Most of the time, I see that friends teams should just be you're much better off to set up referral agreements for each other than you are to actually try and take a team in that one. This is the team that rarely lasts. And I'm not trying to be mean about it. I'm just telling you this is what we see. Ming and I have seen it again and again and again where the friends teams are the ones that have the greatest problem. A lot of times friends teams on all these, and one thing I'm going to give you here in a little bit is like you want to have a team agreement, whichever team it is. And the friends teams, their team agreements are like, I'm going to work for you with you, and you're going to work for me, and it's all going to be puppies and rainbows and that kind of stuff. And it never is that way, if that makes sense, right? So those are kind of our basic team leads or different team structures and how that tends to go. Now let's start getting into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of actually doing your team. First thing that you have to look at once you've decided what your team structure is going to be is what is your team value proposition? So you determine what your structure is, and then what is the cost benefit for someone being on your team? And you have to look at this from two ways. On one hand, you as a team lead, what's the benefit for you? And then what's the cost for them to join your team? So you have to be looking at, yes, you're definitely going to be looking at splits and those kind of things, but you even have to go all the way through and look at, like what are you going to require as far as are they going to need to come into a physical office? How often should they be working? What does the schedule look like? Are you going to set up training time, or is there going to be some sort of a check-in system that you're going to do? Where do you work? When do you work? Where does the team work? How often are you going to meet? What are you going to do when you get there? What does the schedule look like? What is the team schedule? What is that team expectations? You have to look at time blocking not only for you, but for the entire team. Are you going to do mornings together, afternoon flex? Are you going to do afternoon meetings? Everything is different. There is no set ways on how you're going to be, but you want to definitely be going through and look at, how am I going to structure this team to be able to accomplish the goals that I want to accomplish, but still be able to function so we all win, right? The other thing that you have to decide early on is what are the systems that you're going to use? What is the database that you're going to use? On all teams, you have to have a database that you're working off of. Now, most teams all work off one database. You keep everyone in the same place that way because all leads belong to that team. But it's not just about having a database. What are your follow-up systems? What's the drip that's going to be done? How often do we call it back? Who's required to do them calling back? And then what marketing systems are you going to use to move forward with that? Because the systems are so important in here, right? Are you going to use Bold Trail? What are you going to use for communication? What's your website going to be? Where are you keeping your files, your data? Are you going to utilize Zoom or are you going to utilize Google Meets, that kind of stuff? Where are you going to keep your online reviews? How often are you meeting? Are you going to be using Transaction Desk or Remind Docs? I know it seems simple on so many of these things, but you have to decide this for the entire team. And then that's even before we start getting into how do we handle a buyer? How do we handle a seller? What do we do with a buyer lead? Once we actually have a buyer, what does that showing look like? What are our expectations on offers? When a lead comes in, where does that lead go? Um, like there's so many systems that you have to think through. And that's why in the very beginning when I said, look, if you don't have systems in place for you right now, that's going to just blow up once you actually have a team. And I know it seems like I'm going through like this massive laundry list of just listing things, but this is all real world because once you bring somebody in, they don't know where you want to keep your leads at. They don't know what the system is for working with this. They don't know in a lot of cases what is your home buyer process, how you handle a cold lead, um, you know, how do buyer appointments work, that kind of stuff. They don't know what your expectations are on a schedule for them. They don't know what their daily routine needs to look like. Now, the benefit here is that that's why they're coming to you. When you can put this type of structure in place, regardless of what your team structure looks like, but when you have that level of structure for the team members, like they don't have to think about it. It becomes very low stress on their side of things. They're just following the plan. But for you, it's very high stress because you have to come up with a plan. So, what are your duties? What are their duties? What is lead generation going to be coming in? And that's all before you even get a contract. What is it? What does your contract negotiations look like? Do you check every single contract? Do you work with them on that? And then training, support. And that's even before we get in, back to Anna's question about recruiting and getting people who join in here. One thing that you definitely want to do, regardless of what type of team structure is you have to be ready to start tracking your performance. For us, we always tracked our performance based on two key attributes: KPIs and I'm sorry, ABIs and RBIs. ABIs are activity-based indicators, right? And this was mainly for team members. how many database contacts they added every week, how many open houses did they do, how many cold calls, or for sale by owner calls, expired listing calls, how many leads did they follow up on, how many appointments did they set, how many contracts were written. All those are activity-based indicators because we know that when we do these activities, we get these results. Now, for you as the team lead, you also have to have results-based indicators because if you don't put money to the bottom line, you can't afford to have a team. So, your results-based indicators are going to be things like your total database number, how many folks you have in your database, how many active listings that you have, how many buyer clients that you're currently working with, how many under contracts, how many closed contracts that you're doing. You have to have the team tends to focus much more on activity-based indicators. You as a team lead are definitely going to be focused much more on the results side of things because we have to make um, we have to be putting bottom money to the bottom line in here. So when we start looking at how do we attract people to us, to our team? What you want to look at is really three primary focuses, right? What are the team benefits? What are the team expectations? And what are the team costs? And it's really not that hard to do. You break it down. So, you know, team benefits, well, it may be that you're going to be profitable, you're going to get lead generation, coaching and mentorship can be a definite benefit for joining my team. Maybe you're going to do transaction management. I'm going to help you write your contracts. I'm going to assist you with negotiations. You don't have to worry about setting any of your branding up. I've got the branding already set up. I have structure as far as I'm going to, this is what your schedule is going to be. You're going to have very low upfront costs. You're going to have a lot of consistency and very regular transactions, and I'm going to continue to develop you. Now, that might be a list of your team benefits. Your team expectations, well, I expect you every day in the office from 9 to 11, Monday through Friday. I expect that you attend a weekly meeting. I expect that you follow through on all my leads that come through. I expect that you are in the CRM database every day. You're required to hold one open house. You're required to make 400 calls a week, where you're required to set 10 appointments. I expect that you are working full time. And then under costs, um, this is where you go through and break down. This is what your monthly fee would be if there will be one. This is most of the time this is going to work in with this is what our split is. This is how much it would cost. Are you as the team lead gonna absorb their monthly costs, their access to Georgia MLS and the brokerage fees, or are you going to make them continue to pay something? By the way, I do encourage you to make sure in all these that they have some skin in the game. I don't find that, or we don't see where team leads that pay everything end up turning over people a lot because they'll join you because there's zero cost for them up front, and that tends to be really tough. Um, when you want to, if you're very serious about trying to build a team, one of the best things I feel that you can do is to complete a team member agreement in advance. When you walk through a team member agreement, it will force you to answer a lot of these questions that we've been talking about. If anyone that wants a blank, like a format for a team leader agreement, if you'll just email me, Alan@MaxOnePartners.com, I'll send this over to you here. Like I'll share my team leader agreement with you guys here, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It is your team leader agreement will be a lot. What I mean by that is it's going to go through, like here's a team, here's an agreement between me and this team member. It talks about the term, all your team member obligations, um, you know, the rules, liability, relationships, waivers, binding, confidentiality, loyalty, and then you go through what's the tactical work, you know, what work is inherent in this position. This is what your daily schedule is, where you need to come in, leave, all the way through, the behavior that's acceptable and not acceptable. Like if you will walk through there, then you get into the commission structure and then any kind of lead bonuses, all that kind of stuff. I'll be glad to share this with you. The challenge here is if you're doing this, it is a daunting task. If you can fill that team member agreement out, it may take you a week or a month to get all the details worked out. And you'll need to do that before you even start approaching your first hire. You need to understand what is the cost, what are the benefits. So these are my team benefits, these are my expectations for joining the team, and then here's what the costs are going to be. When you can lay that out, you'll see that it makes the recruiting process much easier. You can't honestly recruit until you have that put together because you haven't worked it out in your head what you're going to be doing. And I know I'm going real fast, but I mean, I'm already at about 40 minutes here and I'm not done. So I'm trying to keep this somewhat. By the way, I am putting it together a 3 hour CE class on this. It's just not done yet. And so I just thought I'd go ahead and throw it out here for us today. Let's talk about hiring. Who should your first hire be? For almost everybody, your first hire should either be a transaction coordinator or an admin, not a buyer's agent. You don't need a buyer's agent but you need a transaction coordinator and admin for most folks. You're either going to need assistant or a TC. A lot of folks start off with TCs because uh, um, because that's going to help you get way more productive. um, that's a good thing. And I saw your comment about that having a team doesn't sound positive. I'm not trying to be negative, Nelly. I promise I'm not. I just see people kind of go, "Oh, I'll do a team." Teams can be incredibly productive, really, really great. The benefit of teams is that, together we accomplish more. TEAM, right? And so you are leveraging each other's work. There are really great benefits. Teams produce historically much better than non-teams. So it's not a bad thing, but I do want to be honest about it's a challenge, right? You are taking on a very serious undertaking. And so I'm not trying to be a negative. And if I am coming across negative, I'm sorry, Anna. I don't mean to do that. But I just want to be real honest about like what you need to do. So your first hire either needs to be an assistant or a TC. If you start off with a buyer's agent, you're going to be having a much harder time. That needs to be the biggest thing that you're doing. Now, where you're going to find these people, of course, your brokerage is going to be a real easy one. Going to the realtor boards, that kind of stuff, social media, real estate schools, and then even if you'll start teaching classes, like if you have things that you can do, that's a great way to start getting people, um, you know, experience to you, acknowledge to you. One of the easiest ways to recruit is to do a lot of business. I know that that sounds pretty basic, but when you are doing a lot of business, guess what people do? Man, how you doing that? Sure, I'm really, really interested. That sounds really, really great. Once you have someone that is um, interested, that you're interested in talking to, I personally like to use the DISC profile, the DISC, because you find that different roles tend to lead themselves to different personality types, right? Like most of the time, your admin roles, like lead gen roles tend to be really good D's and I's. Um, buyers agents normally are I's or IS's, or D's. Like pretty much most of your buyers agents are anything but C's on here. Listing agents, D's and C's are really, really strong in there. For all your personal assistants, a high S is really important. S's and C's make some of the best assistants, transaction coordinators, those kind of things. Just looking at what you really need. But what you're trying to do is like you need people who accentuate you. It's not a lot of times if you put two people that are exactly alike together, now you're just I need like one of the reasons why I think Ming and I are so effective is Ming's skill set is nowhere near what mine is. We are strong in different places, and that really helps us out, you know, to a large degree because I can't do what Ming does, and Ming can't do what I do. And so that's been a really big benefit for us out there. One thing, if you are interested in doing a team, you need to set up your LLC now. You need to figure out what is your LLC going to be, well, or maybe not an LLC. It might need to be a C corp or an S corp. You definitely want to talk to attorneys and accountants on how you want to do that. But if you don't have an LLC right now, you got to figure out like how am I going to set that up? You want to be able to do that. You need to again you're operating your business like a business, not like a guy that sells houses. It's a different thing. One thing that I do want you to spend some time if you're considering doing a team is what does like what's going to be my main focus for business? Who's your target client? Because you have to know that as a team, but also you have to be able to ready to teach that and hold that accountable and do that because that lead generation piece is really, really important. Look, leads are not free, and time is money in here. You have to know what your cost per deal is. You have to understand what are you ready, willing, and able to invest in your business. As an individual agent, a lot of agents don't look at marketing expense. They're like, oh, I just do this. I don't invest in my business. If you're going to do a team, be ready to invest in your business. You're going to have to put that in. And then be ready for when leads come in. What is your lead process? For a lot of individual agents, they wing it. They wing leads. They've kind of worked through it over the years. They like this is just how I do it. It's no big deal. It's how I do it. That doesn't work when you're bringing in a team member and trying to put that together. One thing that you will see that kind of runs pretty prevalent with teams, like what is going to be like you need to have some clear goals, big goals, for a lot of your team lead and as well as your lead gen teams. A very common weekly goal is 200 dials, 40 conversations, 4 appointments, one closed deal. Everybody on the team is responsible for making 200 dials, 40 conversations, 4 appointments, and one closed deal. That's what we got to do every week. If we can't do that every week, then you can't stay on this team. One thing that is very different from, say, a team lead or a lead gen team than, say, a mentorship team. With a mentorship team, if I'm not providing you leads, I may not say, look, if you can't produce, you're out. But when you're running a team lead or a lead gen team and you have agents that aren't producing, you either produce or you're out. I'm not going to continue to invest money in here if you're not going to do the job. And that's where the accountability piece comes in. There's a lot of folks in real estate that are really great, amazing agents, not necessarily the greatest people manager. So the one big thing you have to learn is people don't do what you expect, but what you inspect. And so putting in place those standards as well as what are your goals is really, really vital. You're going to need to create an operations manual for this is how I go through. And these are my expectations. You need to be ready to start having agent meetings, even if it's just you and one other person. Just that agent meeting can be great. They may be friends, but you still are going to have someone that's doing some accountability on here. Praise in public, counsel in private. Use I statements when counseling folks, not you statements. If I say I can't do this, that's very different than you are doing this bad. That comes across very, very different. So, whether you're doing group meetings, one-on-one meetings, these kind of things has to be really, really important to you in there. Coaching and training. Um, I know for a lot of team leads, the challenge is like, well, what happens if I train them and they leave? Well, really, the question you should ask yourself is, what if I don't and they stay? Right? You're so much worse off for that. You really have to be ready to pour into others. And honestly, they really will. You find that for so many teams, people don't lose because if you start making money, they're really, really happy. Why do so many agents go to the new construction neighborhoods? They don't make what they used to make on a per transaction basis, but they make money constantly. They're making a living, they're getting by. So it's not about I'm going to make I'm still making the same splits that I made before. They're not going to make the same splits. They kind of go into that knowing that you need to go into that knowing as well. So you have to be ready to put that forward and be okay with that. Don't cut yourself short on the compensation of what you're bringing as a team. I see one another common thing is that someone will do a lead gen team or do a team lead team, and they'll try and cut their split because they feel like it just seems I have a hard time doing 50-50, and then the team lead is putting out all this money and investing all this money, and the team lead is the one who's going broke on here. So you have to make sure that like you have to support the business and the operation as well as you're going through. Your vendor relationships can be very important in here. Who is everyone in the team going to work with? Who's your closing attorney? Who's your lenders? Who are any of the local businesses that you have through there? There is a lot of opportunities here. I am, if I've been negative, I will really just kind of apologize. I don't mean it to be that way. Um, but there is a lot of great opportunity for doing teams. The whole idea here is if you will focus more on building a business than you are on building a team is naturally going to happen. We see that when agents' business grows to a point, a team becomes a very natural element in there. If you force a team when you don't have the production to support a team, or you don't have the people skill, I mean the follow through, the admin side of things in place, that's where it gets really, really challenging. But if you're already a high performing agent and you've got more business that you can handle, and you've got this is how I work with buyers, and this is how I work with sellers, and these are the systems that we use, and this is my process, and you're ready to teach other people, this can be an outstanding opportunity for you. Ming and I, we've had multiple teams over the years. We've done some that have been SEAL teams. We've always had a family team, obviously, through the whole process. We've done lead gen teams and we've done team lead teams. Um, you know, different times change, that kind of stuff goes on. I am a big fan of teams, and I'm not trying to be discouraged about it at all. I'll be glad to share if anybody wants. I'll share the team agreement with you. I can also share a task list for all your team members that you can choose through who you want, and I can share that list of team ABIs and RBIs, activity-based indicators and results-based indicators. I'll be glad to share those with you. Just shoot me an email to Alan at Maximum Partners, and I'll be glad to send those things over to you in an email. Um, let's see. What questions do we have? Because I am wide open here about that. That's kind of the basis of what I wanted to talk about today. And I'm sorry if I'm running long, but um, what questions y'all have? Anything I can help anybody with?
Hey Alan, this Letty. I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
So on the SEAL team, that's kind of, I guess, pointing to one type. I'm sorry.
It generally
Is
is
that?
pointing towards one type of lead system or
Mm-hmm.
one type of client. So sometimes we've had like if you've ever represented a builder, that would kind of be a SEAL team, right? We used to have default servicing team where we worked REO properties. That it just kind of depends or focuses around either a lead source or a particular um, segment. And so it those tend to be easier because everybody's kind of focused around one thing.
So if you do something like, let's say, you know how Atlanta has a lot of activities. Like I know you guys do in what is that? The little flower festival.
Oh, the
Um,
Geranium Festival, yeah.
yeah. So if you get it, do a SEAL team with a group of agents, hypothetically, and focus on all the activities, have some booths at all these conventions and stuff like that. Could you do that with a group of people and then just focus on that? And then now what happens for with the people who already have their own business? You know what I mean? Can you separate that or would that be too
Well, in that case, you're probably talking more about a mentorship team than you are actually talking about a SEAL team. Like
okay,
if I was setting that up as a SEAL team, then we would have a different event that we did every single week. And then this is
okay,
what going to work looked like. And then this is how we follow up on all those kind of leads. And so if it was like every weekend we're going to be at a farmer's market, we're going to be at a festival, we're going to be something, we're going to continue to work that whole team is focused around that same thing. Every weekend we're doing this. During the week we follow up and do on these kind of things. That's very different than, but if you're saying, hey, we're just going to get together, you'll normally see that a mentorship team may be a better type structure
okay,
for
okay,
that, or even a team lead team on here.
okay, gotcha.
So Shannon, I just saw your comment, and you and Bobby have been an amazing team for a long time. Like I should probably let you talk during the family team description because you guys are a great family team. Is there anything you want to add in or share with us?
No, Bobby is actually here with me today, and we're listening together. And as you were saying things, we were like, "Oh, we did that wrong. We did that wrong. Oh, we did that wrong." And having a new perspective going into it. We've had a team of five, and then we've been a team of one, and we're trying to get back to a team of two. So
There we go.
we're taking a lot from what you said. Great job. We're learning from what you said, and we appreciated everything.
Awesome, awesome sauce. Anybody have any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
Alan, I just wanted to say I think you did a great job of telling the truth of it. I know you said you didn't want to sound negative, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I have seen it and you've seen it for years. I see people that they're not even successful agents themselves, and they come wanting to start a team and they think there's this magic in it that is just going to create business because they have a team and they don't become a good agent themselves first. And then I also think it's really great that you talked about getting a transaction coordinator before you start getting agents because I mean that's the when you start trying to if you bring agents on and things aren't in place, then you're going to get frustrated because you're playing catch up and you're trying to tell them you're going to use this coordinator that you've not used. So there's just a lot of details that it does. And I'm not good at patience. Like I'm not a patient person. When I get an idea, I want to run with it. I want to get it done right then, right, and as our brother Kenneth Story says, put something out that's half baked. And that resonates with me because I've started catching myself. I'm like, no, don't do that yet. That would be half baked. It's not ready to eat and digest. So let's get this thing ready before we do that. And, the best advice I can give someone that is actually in position to start a team is really think about those team splits, especially when it pertains to that, say, sales agent, when they have family members that would have bought or sold with them anyway. I've seen so many people leave teams because they were going to have to give up half the commission on their parents' property or their siblings' property. And my advice to team, because we have some successful teams that do very well, but I have seen some of those team members leave and they stay as agents with us and they end up doing business and being good individual agents. But they would have stayed with that team if there had been you know, a situation where they weren't going to be charged so much for their own family members' transactions that they would be bringing to that team. So that's my only advice that I really always give. Uh, team leaders in our company is, you're going to invest time in training these agents. Try to keep them. I mean, we and Alan, from having branch managers and things, like whenever there's turnover with a branch manager, it exhausts the rest of the team trying to train that person and get them up to speed. And it really slows your whole business down. So it's better, as a team leader, yes, you've got to make some because you're spending money on advertising, you're spending money on the transaction coordinator. In some cases, they spend money on the monthly fees. I've only had one team that did that for about a year or so. He lost so much money on that team member that they changed it and quit paying their monthly fees for him.
Mm.
But just I would just suggest that you consider that, because you got to think most agents that have come to us, they came to us because they didn't want to pay high fees to begin with, and they didn't want large splits. So, don't be greedy, but be reasonable. And that way you keep people longer if, if it justifies what you're taking from their commission, if it's justifiable by the services you're providing them.
But yeah, and also be ready for the emotional toll of bringing somebody on your team. Like it's a big deal, especially when you go from being an independent agent and now all of a sudden, like I felt so much responsibility when I started bringing team members in about, all right, we got to eat. Now I'm feeding two families now, and then that kind of stuff. You can't take that lightly. So that's why having that business in place beforehand is so important. So, anybody have any other questions, thoughts, concerns? All right. Neil, thanks so much for your feedback, guys. We appreciate you all. If I can be of any kind of service, let me know. If you want any of those things I was telling you about, just shoot me an email, alan@maxwinpartners.com. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.